All right, thank you for joining SSB and Sports Alliance today in our 1-hour webinar, Win the Game with SSB and Sports Alliance Global De Facto Standard Hub. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items we'd like to note. The session will be recorded and available on demand following the presentation. We'll leave approximately 15 minutes at the end of our conversation for live Q&A, but feel free to leverage the chat Q&A as we progress through our time together, and we will monitor for timely questions to insert into our conversation. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Mike Banville and Anthony Kahn, both CEOs and founders of Sports Alliance and SSB respectively. Mike Banville joined SSB as the CEO 3 years ago, where he leverages over 20 years of global executive leadership expertise in P&L management, M&A, sales and marketing management, product management, and strategic planning. Anthony Kahn founded Sports Alliance almost 20 years ago, where he has led an extraordinary team in the development of world's leading sports supporter relationship management solution, having achieved a dominant position serving European sports clubs, leagues, and federations. He's excited about the opportunity the Americas presents with our partnership. Mike, Anthony, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Crystal. Good morning, good evening to everyone joining us from across the world. We're very glad to be here today and to introduce our de facto global brand standard, the Hub, that we are now offering across the Americas and Europe regions. Combined, SSB and Sports Alliance have over 30 years of experience across the two largest sports markets in the world to offer now a complete and proven solution for fan data management, relationship development, and marketing strategy that drives revenue and fan engagement and loyalty. Working with over 125 US teams, US and Canada teams in the NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, NCAA, and MLS, and also other entertainment entities as well. We at SSB have galvanized fan relationships through our central intelligence data management platform, our Discovery CRM solution, and more recently, our streamlined sponsorship fulfillment and management solution called Sponsorship Central, a platform that is trusted by many sports teams, including the Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Partnerships and fan engagement now require a data-driven reporting approach that quantifies a return on investment. A clean data foundation, robust relationship management, and omni-channel marketing are really the critical steps in a team's ability to personalize outreach and monetize a loyal fan base.
And indeed, Mike, our global best practice hub addresses those very needs. Sports Alliance works with over 140 sports brands across 9 countries in Europe and Latin America, developing fan loyalty through our proprietary marketing platforms, Campaign and Campaign Assistant. Inside Campaign Assistant, all the marketing campaigns our teams create are saved in a central database with their success metrics for other teams to easily access, review, or repurpose. Whether it is a marketing campaign to boost fan engagement with sponsors, membership numbers, or merchandise promotions, countless templates are available to inspire you with the campaign segmentation and commit tools immediately at hand to then execute your omni-channel marketing activity.
Thanks, Anthony. Teaming up with another global industry leader, Sports Alliance, strengthens and complements our offerings at SSB, including the central intelligence solution to offer North American teams the opportunity to take advantage of an invaluable marketing repository of campaign best practices across hundreds of sports organizations, taking the guesswork out of marketing strategy and planning, allowing organizations to leverage this insight and campaign analysis to create new and meaningful ways to connect with your fans. SSB clients that utilize our central intelligence data management platform will be able to leverage that investment to integrate with the Sports Alliance Campaign Assistant offering that we will be further discussing today.
Sport clubs, for their differences in nationality and size, are fundamentally the same in their need to engage fans in personal, lifelong journeys. And that's why we're here. Our partnership with SSB and collaborative approach to the global sports market is about getting your teams involved in the community-powered growth of our industry. The Sports Alliance Toolkit brings SSB Central Intelligence users a range of benefits. My colleague Matt will provide an overview of our marketing workflow, a deeper dive into SRM Campaign and Campaign Assistant, and our embedded BI reports for analysis. All the proof points of a solution value provided to organizations like yours and how this toolkit can be leveraged to drive revenue growth and fan engagement. The applications you'll see have processed and thematically tagged some 34,000 campaigns over the years. Hammered daily, these apps are by our hundreds of sport organization users seeking inspiration to supercharge their marketing automation and deliver superior results for every product they have to sell, from ticketing to merchandise to digital to partner campaigns. And this is the point where, when we start to look at marketing campaigns, that it all comes together in terms of partnership activation. Every team we work with is a media property with certain reach and many commitments. Broadcast advertising has its place, but what sponsors want from sport franchises is the depth of that relationship with the fans. The ability to segment by age, gender, location, and level of involvement with the club to deliver messages at the right time to the right person with the right offer, whether via Salesforce Marketing Cloud, Yinscam geolocation, whatever the basis for getting that global sponsor message to the supporter might be. As we continue with the session, there is no one better than Peter Spartan, who, having previously been a client of both SSB and Sports Alliance, and now in a different guise, once again a Sports Alliance client, to discuss the value that sport organizations will garner from the powerful global collaboration SSB and Sports Alliance have brought together in this partnership. I hope you enjoy the rest of this morning's session, and I'll leave you with this animation that we put together with SSB that should quickly show you what we are all about.
With more than a decade's experience of both agency and property side in sports data management, CRM, and digital marketing, Matt joined Sports Alliance having headed up data and insights department at EPL club Aston Villa. In 2.5 years at Sports Alliance, Matt has worked closely with some of the leading data-driven clubs in European soccer to drive business value and grow revenues. Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Crystal, and thanks. Morning, everybody in the US, and good afternoon to anybody that's joining us in Europe. I'm Matt Swindell's Account Director for Sports Science here in the UK. My role oversees both client services and commercial services, and I'm going to run us through the Sports Science Toolkit, which makes up the hub, and then explain a little more about how our clients leverage the power of their data and our products to improve efficiency, democratize the data they hold, and ultimately grow long-lasting, profitable relationships with fans. So I'm going to start with showing you the Sports Science marketing workflow. And as a business, we pride ourselves on ensuring clients can communicate with fans quickly, accurately, and with an insight-led approach. And in order to do this, the clients must go through 3 simple steps. So we've got Inspire using our campaign assistant tool, Execute using SRM Campaign, and Analyze via Tableau. Then it's rinse and repeat. We test and learn, and we go again, and we're always trying to improve and keep moving forward. So each of the workflow elements has a corresponding product, which we're going to see now. And for the purposes of the demo, we're going to run through a typical season ticket renewal campaign using Leicester City from the Premier League as an example. For those of you without detailed knowledge of the Premier League, Leicester were surprise winners of the competition in 2016 and have gone on since to build a competitive team both on and off the pitch. So here is Campaign Assistant, and this is what you need to get inspired. So clients use our Campaign Assistant tool, which is essentially a back catalogue of every campaign which has been sent from the SPs of our clients. So each client opts in, and at the point of opting in gets access to other clients' campaigns, we've also opted in. So we have now around 35,000 campaigns available. And the ideology is based around stimulating best practice and knowledge sharing within the sports science community, which, as we know, now consists of over 130 clients across Europe. It's an easy way for you to see all your own campaigns and provides a quick and visual representation for others across the organisation on your marketing activity. It also means other departments who want a snapshot of that activity have a ready-made place to do so and can just come and check in on progress. We can then jump into each campaign and see performance metrics which help define success. And there's many ways to slice and dice the metrics, but to get down to your ideal campaign, you can scroll through most recently sent, best opened, best clicked across the whole sports science community. There is also the option to filter. So the example we're showing at the moment is how you'd filter a campaign to find some inspiration for a season ticket renewal campaign. We've built our own scoring calculations for each of the respective category metrics: reputation, engagement, and commercial. And each is scored out of 100, and these scores are then averaged and ranked overall. And you get to, again, the ability to slide on specific performance metrics too, if required. The volume of individuals that the campaign was sent to can also be amended, as can the date range. Each campaign is then tagged using AI, which provides an efficient way to identify the content, whether that be Valentine's Day, Black Friday, Christmas, whatever it might be. Seek and you will find. And by simply adding the season ticket sales tag, as we've seen in the example, you can then play with the performance metrics to drill down further. So we found a campaign there, which was Swansea City season ticket campaign, which we like the look of. And for the next steps, we simply grab that web view link and we send this off to our design team, let them know we've found something we like the look of, and we want to run something similar. We've been inspired by Campaign Assistant. So that's a quick whiz through of Campaign Assistant and how that works and how it fits into the workflow. We're now going to move to the execute phase using the filter builder. So the filter builder is where you slice and dice your data in order to build out targeted segments for marketing. It's for clients in the US. All the data is powered by central intelligence and mapped seamlessly. In the filter builder, you have your count starting at 0, and we build our way up. So you can see nodes on the left-hand side broken down into different sections, and then additional variables underneath each parent node. And here we cover contact channel, demographics, geography, preferences, campaigns, and roles. Roles is then where we have the behavioral and transactional information to help segment. So here you can see access control, for example, which is where fans who've scanned in on a match day, you can see on an individual match by match basis. You have events, loyalty balances, memberships, ticketing, merchandise, recency, frequency, value, right the way down to specific products or sizes of merchandise if required. So any integrations that you have within central intelligence help us make up the roles function within the filter builder. You can also retarget based on behavior from previous lists or actions too. So you can quickly follow up any positive interactions such as opens or clicks with a call list. This can be pushed directly to Discovery CRM as a quick call list. So you can really drill down to be very precise and targeted to quite tight segments of fans. From here, you then drag and drop until you have the filter you require using Boolean search, that's and, or, and not. And for our season ticket campaign example, we're going to drag in email, as we can see the filter building out here in the example. Then add in those who have a high propensity to renew, who live within 20 miles of the venue. You can then add in any preferences or mailing lists that are required. But we're concentrating on ticketing here. So as we build through this, you'll be able to look at different elements within the match ticketing node. So you could drop down by season and then by competition. And once you've done that, if you wanted to, you could pull in anybody who sat in a specific stand for a specific fixture, for example. But we're interested in the example we pulled out in season tickets. So we're going to filter that out, and anyone who was not a season ticket holder in 2021, but who held a season ticket in 1920, we hit run, and that's given us our count, and it really is as simple as that. So we now have name and save that filter, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. So SRM campaign is the next place that we head, and this is a place to organize your marketing campaigns within a single repository, with full visibility on historical and current successes. So here you'd have your overarching seasonal campaigns across match tickets, season tickets, merchandise, premium sales, and partners, for example. We'll add a campaign target, which would be the product or products you're looking to sell. And then with each campaign, a communication list is attached. The time frame that the list is live for and the channel being used, depending on which connectors you have set up, is then selected. So this can be ESP via your marketing cloud, it can be discovery CRM, it can be social via Instagram or Facebook ads, it can be SMS, app, or direct mail. So you have a full omni-channel approach to digital marketing. But everything we do here is really about manipulating the data and pushing it to the marketing delivery tool. So from here, we then add the filter we've just created to the communication list, and we go through the commit process. This is where the data list is then pushed via API to the ESP or whichever delivery tool it needs to go to, and it's timestamped, so you have full visibility on when and where it was sent. Within a few moments, that data will then appear in your ESP or execution tool. So when we talk about execution tools, as we can see on screen now, we have pre-built connectors with a large number of third parties, but we also work really closely with our clients and the vendors to ensure an efficient two-way exchange of data. So we're not only pushing data in, we're also pulling the performance metrics back. To enable a truly omni-channel approach, we aim to remove the boundaries between different sales and marketing channels to help create this unified, integrated solution. So the distinctions between the channels then disappear as we have a single view of our customers, and that helps to emerge and helps merge our marketing activity. So whoever your marketing vendors might be, we will find a way to work with them to ensure that you too can have a true omni-channel approach to your digital marketing. Once the campaigns have been delivered, we then have the performance metrics coming back from our third parties. We're then able to get further insights via Tableau as we move into the analyze phase here. So Tableau is embedded within Sports Alliance toolkit, and all reports are pre-built but are available for analysis for the marketing and insights team. And essentially everything here is at your fingertips as soon as you need it. So here we can inspect in detail the performance of campaigns and any associated revenues via our own attribution modeling tool, and we also have a set of benchmarks. So we've run through a few campaigns on the screen, but the first report we saw was one of our benchmark reports. Now, this gives clients a really great idea of what good actually looks like. So there's endless stats and data online telling you what we should be aiming for in terms of open rates, click-to-open rates, conversion rates, whatever it might be. But here we have precise detail as we're able to measure all of our clients' results and activity. So it's really important also to point out that the benchmarking is anonymous, but this means that performance can still be measured on a league by league or country by country basis, and really provides a great steer for how well you are performing as a club or as an organisation. This can then be filtered by any combination of month, date, year, whatever you need to slice and dice that to see how you're performing. We actually have lots of situations where clients are setting their marketing team's own internal KPIs via these benchmarking reports as well. We then have the response workbooks, which give an overview of the commercial performance of each campaign that's been sent using the attribution modeling tool. And attribution modeling is set up during the SRM campaign element. So we know now how many products have been sold and at what price, and we can really begin to estimate and predict the incremental revenue uplift each type of marketing activity can produce for you. So you can compare and contrast the success of different channels. And this means that if you wanted to, you could go in and see, how did my Facebook ad compare against my email campaign, for example. We then have a number of different reports, but one of the ones we've also seen was the analysis report to give us further snapshot of when is the best time and day to send specific campaigns, and that's broken down by open and conversion rates. And again, just gives you a much granular understanding of how performance can be improved. These reports alone are some of the most viewed content within the Sports Alliance Tableau environment and become the go-to place for clients to get a better and deeper understanding of their marketing activity. So that's a very quick whiz through of the toolkit. So to wrap up, the toolkit does consist of 3 distinct products. We've got Campaign Assistant, SRM Campaign, and Tableau, all of which are made available by the Sports Alliance apps platform. And then just to run through the key takeaways. So first of which is directly upgrade your marketing workflow. So we go through the 3 simple steps and we keep moving, keep improving as we go through. We can then execute campaigns in a minute or less, and that's entirely possible. And then we are looking to move from multi-channel to omni-channel, really putting the customer and the fans at the heart of what we do. So we're not being driven specifically by a channel. It's more about the supporter and which channel is best for them. We then have our community-powered benchmarking. So again, being able to understand and assess your own performance against your peers, as well as, finally, and probably most importantly, being able to generate 5 times return on investment in your first year. I think that's it from me, Crystal. So pass back over to you and look forward to some questions a bit later on.
Thank you, Matt. All right, we will move on to Peter. Peter most recently led commercial strategy, planning, and business intelligence for the Premier League's Fulham Football Club in London, UK, including overseeing ticketing and new stadium projects. Now as a consultant, Peter is applying the same data-centric and analytical guidance to Formula One with Aston Martin Formula One team. Focusing on customer and revenue growth opportunities for organizations, Peter has worked with executive teams to aid major sports brands deliver on ticketing, sponsorship, and premium sales through research, CRM, pricing, and product optimization, while concurrently developing their team's processes, data, and reporting infrastructure. Peter, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everyone, and thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Anthony and Mike, for asking me to share a little bit about my experience with SSB and Sports Alliance. So yes, I potentially might be the only or else the first client of both SSB and Sports Alliance from my time in the UK with Fulham Football Club. And I've obviously seen the tools in action from both sides. I can start by saying that I ended up getting to a point here with these tools that you end up supporting direct revenue streams that you otherwise either couldn't have done efficiently and consistently. And depending on obviously where you're starting from, you get to a point where you're maybe no longer conceived as a cost center, but you're more of a revenue driver, or at least a direct supporter of the revenue. So key integration across the business. So I personally am back now in the United States, but when I was over in the UK with Fulham, we were actually recommended to SSB. Then it was Stone Timber River by the sales team of the Jaguars, and concurrently had integrated the Discovery CRM product alongside Sports Alliance's tools that you just saw Matt demo. We actually also use Sponsorship Central, and we even ended up creating some first team player views for team operations at the end there. So use the products kind of widely across both. For some more context here, so I came to Fulham from a much larger global soccer team where I was actually the acting head of CRM there. I supported all sort of verticals. Before that, I specifically supported their revenue stadium operations, so specifically things like ticketing, hospitality, events, and so on and so forth. Prior to my time in the UK, I came from more tech-heavy marketing roles in the US with larger companies, which had much more robust and sophisticated tools, I should say operations rather, and systems in place. So seeing sort of a wide range of the spectrum. I personally actually wasn't the full-time user of the tools. I could easily go in and find what I wanted from them and when I needed to, but my team and the marketing team were actually the day-to-day users. So at Fulham, I oversaw the strategy and BI for the commercial operations, specifically ticketing, but just like any sports team, that spanned typical revenue streams of an organization. And given the position there, really I was at this sort of intersecting perspective of marketing, sales, and data across the business, aside from obviously the playing team operations. But I guess that's kind of why I'm here today, because SSB and Sports Alliance really actually bridge those areas for me to help the broader organization drive communications, engagement, and ultimately revenues. And whether those were directly with marketing or sales campaigns for retail ticketing, partners, et cetera, or indirectly through the data and insights or in support of sponsorship or partnership needs, that's what the combination of these tools actually enabled. I understand most of you are familiar with SSB here on the call today and their value, but the three things I guess I could take or I could convey, I guess, from working with Sports Alliance are the following. First, Sports Alliance's technical prowess and system and data integration abilities were very key. So I spent obviously a good amount of time early on in my tenure there sorting through existing data and connecting systems and the like, just like I'm sure most people have experienced. But and that was just to get to some sort of decent reporting of what was going on, much less provide the operational insights and decision-making capabilities. But unlike most US organizations, I think the UK sports operations don't really have that kind of IT support that's assumed that you have in the US. In addition, the marketers I work with during my time in the UK were great, but in general, I'm a little less tech or data savvy. And that's where Sports Alliance actually did a lot of the heavy lifting to get us where we needed to be and beyond, actually, in fact. So I can only imagine here in the US with some of the sports organizations that get up and running with these tools and any necessary integrations would, compared to what typically Sports Alliance have seen, it would be a whole lot quicker and easier. Which actually brings me to my second point around resources. I personally can't write SQL, but I kind of happen to be the most technical person there in most situations, obviously outside IT, and I didn't actually directly handle the campaigns and execution. So outside some of the ticket office personnel, I oversaw like a CRM manager and some lead gen and analysts. And we had obviously the abilities to go in and pull data and do a lot of Excel work and modeling and so on and so forth. But we ultimately had like one person who managed pretty much the lists, the emails, the call campaigns, whatever those might be, segmentation, daily reporting, and interacted with our sales and marketing teams. Marketing had people involved as well, so there was a little bit of a shared resource there, but basically there was no need for like data scientists or IT support or even actually a full-on database manager. So that was actually key, especially early on in our time there. And don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have some of the more resources and technical people there, but in fact I relied on some early support from the Jags. But if I had those resources, they'd ultimately be focused on more challenging work, and that's why I was supported more by analysts than people handling the tools. I wasn't necessarily managing campaigns and metrics and getting communications out the door. That was basically easy to do. In today's world, I understand a lot of teams have cut back in sort of this area with COVID, and others maybe have doubled down on some of the digital and audience related work. But I guess either way, the resource and time saved here to focus on priorities was actually very critical, and this speaks more to the nature of where Sports Alliance comes from and the tools that they've built to suit the needs of the organization they actually work with. So, Sports Alliance's client base, just like SSB's, really has this breadth and diversity of sizes of the client and the audiences that they represent. And that sort of just shows you the flexibility of their solutions, no matter what you have internally or not. So in my personal experience, Sports Alliance handled a great deal, but there were parts that I know that we did in-house that they did for other clients, and obviously the opposite held true. The last point I wanted to make is really sort of that aha moment that you get to. So at some point when things are up and running and humming along, you actually start seeing sort of the results of this. There's no longer that data or IT's frustration, the siloed systems, and so on and so forth that I'm sure everyone has experienced. There's always there's always some idea or work to integrate something new or a new priority, but you really get over that hump of frustration that usually plagues sort of these areas of the operation. And I think that combination of these tools really helped us get us there quite quickly. So I tend to think of it as that day where that salesperson can't figure out how to put bad data into the system anymore, and you kind of have that behind you. But joking aside, I guess you get to this sort of better data and better insights, better reports, better customer intelligence. and ultimately better business intelligence to make sort of decisions, whether that's, feedback to sales teams or reporting for the board or ownership. You can, when you really can execute call and email campaigns and support sponsorship sales with data, help partners execute, creative ideas that come, your way to connect to the audience. This is really how you end up driving that engagement and revenue from the organization. So, in summary, I was obviously pleased with the combination of tools and services because, I actually didn't really need to rely on a lot of technical knowledge. My resources ended up being quite focused, and I was able to show sort of the business value of data and CRM and the marketing tools that sometimes leadership isn't particularly knowledgeable about. And that's sometimes why they just treat all this as cost centers. So that was my experience. It was obviously a positive one. That's why Mike and Anthony had me here today, but wanted to share that with you. So I appreciate, listening, and I hope what I conveyed was helpful. Back over to you, Crystal.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. And thank you to all of our speakers today. This concludes our planned conversation at this time, so we'll shift to the Q&A portion of our time together. As a reminder, please use the Q&A chat function so we can address as many questions as possible. And please note, for any questions we do not get a chance to answer, we will include them in our follow-up materials. And with that, I'll shoot it over to Mike.
Thanks, Crystal. And we've gotten some coming in during the presentation, so thank you for that. But as Crystal said, please keep sending them in. We will sort our way through them and try to get to each one. First question, I think maybe this one, Anthony, start with you on it, and also Peter, if you have thoughts as a practitioner as well. Questions around, if you're on the forefront of technology and data segmentation, how do you get started with the basics of marketing segmentation and campaigns?
I think from our perspective, there are big differences between most North American sport franchises and most European sports clubs. Probably the biggest has to do with relegation, the fact that you can be thrown out of the top division and then hope that you get promoted again, and all of the impacts that has on revenue and on the size of these organizations, where often there just is nowhere near the resources that you could possibly need to go and do all of the things that you'd want to. So we've been sure to build our product in a way that really makes it exceptionally easy to use, to get the inspiration that you need, and to see, even if you don't have specific training in anything that's involved, exactly where you're going to be able to take advantage. Pass that back over to you, Mike, and to Peter.
Thanks. Peter, any thoughts from you as a practitioner on that in terms of that data and fan engagement journey, depending on where you are in that process?
Yeah, certainly. And Fulham was one of those clubs that were promoted and relegated a little too much for my own liking. But the systems and tools were really never the challenge, and we were pretty lean ultimately on resource. We worked very collaboratively with marketing, so we shared some of the responsibilities and initiatives with the data. Worked very closely with sales teams. So it's sort of, the answer is it depends where you're starting from and what the existing skill sets and people you have. And the processes that you have in place. But, in my experience, Sports Alliance, trained up as much as we needed ultimately to easily get to segmentation and a lot of the basics once sort of the data is integrated how you want it.
Thanks, Peter. I have one here, I think maybe a good one for you, Matt. We use the phrase in the presentation, supercharging marketing automation. So I think people are like, okay, nice buzzword, sounds good. Like, what does that mean? How does that apply to the email service providers and other tools and tech that teams may have in place?
Yes, I think from an automation perspective would be, obviously everything begins with data, so everything in central intelligence is always going to be the starting point, and then the ability through SRM campaign and the filter builder to package and segment those fans, I guess, efficiently is then the enabler to better automation via the ESPs and the marketing clouds. But I think it's also important not to get caught up in trying to overcomplicate it. Certainly from an automation perspective, keep it simple to begin with. We've got the tools to help you to test and learn and measure your successes. And once you've done them, once you've tested, let them go. But you can always just keep track of what you're doing, and the ability to get those campaigns out, move on, is kind of the solution, and helps you, I guess, to supercharge your marketing automations.
Yeah, so maybe a piece to kind of get a little more into that, Matt, for you, and any others to chime in on. I think our clients face the build versus buy situation in terms of tech. How do you think about the complementing other systems? We talk about omni-channel. There are different channels. Maybe we define or redefine those here too. But how does the Sportsline tool set complement the investments clubs have already made to make it all work better?
Yeah, so I think certainly I guess just to clarify the differences that we see between multi-channel and omni-channel. Multi-channel is driven predominantly by a specific product or channel, funnily enough, whereas omni-channel is much more based around the customer and has the customer at the core, and I guess merging of those direct marketing channels rather than a more linear approach. So that'd be the first point. And yeah, once you've got the tool set in place, you really have got everything that you need to make that happen. It's then having those connectors, making sure that you have gone through the integration process first and foremost with Central Intelligence, and then you've got the connectors built to be able to build, segment your campaigns, and push them out across all of those different channels that you have available to you.
Yeah, so I think that it's meant to work with the other tech systems that you are working at individual channels, but then kind of individual, you can't bring it all back together, or like you said, drive from the fan is the center point. I think that's to play that back to you, right? Question related to that came up around what do you need to have in place to enable the Sports Alliance marketing tool set? So the partnership we have is centered around connecting the marketing tool set to the Central Intelligence data platform that SSB provides. So that is the platform, the foundation you have in place is the clean data foundation with Central Intelligence, and then that, when integrated with the Sports Alliance marketing tools, that's the powerful combination we think can really help drive value for you all and ultimately the fans you're working with. We got one on the point around, I think we flashed up on the screen during the video, the 5 times ROI. Anthony, maybe I'll start with you on that. That's obviously a great stat. You want to talk a little bit more about what's behind that?
Yeah, I think the idea that if you've got all of your data in one place and you can then market across every medium that you need at the right time to the right supporter for all of your various products, what you end up then being able to do is track over the time that you have that campaign out the door, given that you know what you're promoting and whether that person you're communicating with has come in and bought that product from you, real ROI calculations for every single campaign that you engage with, so that you can keep on improving, keep on learning, keep on doing better. What have we done along the way? Because we are statisticians and data people at heart, is add that all up and look at what the revenue returns have been, given what is in place to go out and get these communications done, getting the season ticket renewals, getting the memberships in place, selling more and more digital products, and being able to say, yes, here, there's a cost associated with this, but there is, on a systematic basis, in excess of 5 times return on investment for everything that is in play in the space of personalizing your relationships with your supporters.
Yeah, maybe a follow-up question related to that, but for the Sportsline team and Peter too, as you had brought these investments in. With COVID, a lot of clubs in North America, and I think Anthony, from our conversations in Europe as well, are doing more with less, trying to, in some cases, a lot less in terms of resources, dollars and people. How do you think about convincing, getting the investment in the Sports Alliance tool set, kind of over the hump, if you will, with the executives in your organization in terms of the business executives within the sports club, thinking about proving that case? Obviously, the ROI you mentioned, Anthony, is part of that, right? But that, I think that's a at least I think coming from the question, a steeper hill to climb in some cases right now, given the constraints folks are operating under during COVID. Anthony, maybe you start, and then Peter, if you have thoughts as well.
Certainly, I think, especially during COVID time, one of the things there are things that become very clear. If people aren't going through physical turnstiles to get into a stadium, they have to be going somewhere. They're going via digital turnstiles. So single sign-on products and ways for you to get directly involved with your club, new digital products, new capabilities. So if you look at when you step back, what is a club? What are its assets? It has its playing staff, it has its stadium, it has its supporters. So one of the most important key initial messages is you have this asset, you have to be able to systematically exploit it, or you're not perfectly using the asset that you have to hand. And that's a requirement of senior management will understand that. That is a given. And you need to do that by getting the right sets of campaigns out the door once you've gotten that full data asset in place.
Peter, how about you? You had to go in and convince an executive team to do some of this stuff. How'd that work?
It obviously depends where we're starting from again, I guess. Actually, prior to my time at Fulham, the frame of that question turned around, and you can also say what you can't do, and sometimes that might be a better approach to point out the gaps that you have, and lay expectations out to decision makers about what that means for the organization. Especially when you can't calculate ROIs and so on and so forth. On the flip side, I'm currently setting up. I've set up Sports Alliance and some of their tools in a sport where there is no direct ticketing revenue. So we're plenty busy, and that's been set up within a matter of weeks with very limited resources and lack of processes and new people coming on board, and proving maybe the basics, or for investment isn't wasn't necessarily needed, but just trying to display what can be possible with some limited investment, and was fairly straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Maybe somewhat related to that, Matt, a question around what's involved. How long does it take to get up and running? What kind of effort has to go in there? I guess technically and business wise. To maybe if you break it into kind of the business user getting up and running, but in the technical piece, can you rough that out in terms of what you all typically experience?
Yes, I think obviously the central intelligence integration is built, so we know what we're doing there. We're at the moment looking at 50 to 60 days. I think once we get through our first 2 or 3 clients, then we're going to be pushing that. It's going to just get quicker and quicker. So from that perspective, it's relatively straightforward. We know what we're doing. SSB know what they're doing. Client knows what they're getting at the end of it. There'll be a few check-ins as we go through, but ultimately, at the moment it'll be 60 days, but we think it'll be we'll begin much more efficient than that.
Yeah, I think the business user training piece is relative. I mean, from what I've seen from you all, relatively quick, right? In terms of getting business users comfortable using the tool in practice.
Yeah, it's kind of the UI is so intuitive that once you've got the fundamentals in place and you know how you're organizing your campaigns, you've got your connectors set up, then it's very much a case of pretty much anybody can go in and understand how the tools work and how everything knits together.
All right, I got one other one here, probably our last one around. This was around you flashed up, this is for Matt, for you and any others to comment around the campaign library. You flashed up the, show the filters and a whole, thousands of campaigns from the Sports Alliance client base there. Can you talk a little more about how that works in practice? Like how do you see clients using that day to day in practice as part of their marketing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the best use cases we've had would have been kind of 6 to 8 weeks during the first lockdown in the UK. And we ran a webinar with all of our clients to talk about best practice in terms of, if there's nothing to sell at the moment, nobody's allowed out of the houses, what are we doing and how is everybody communicating with their supporters? So we had loads of great examples and everybody kind of chipped in and said, oh, we could try this or we could do that. And ultimately we ran the webinar through using Campaign Assistant, and we were able to pick out some really great examples, campaigns that had worked really well, some that hadn't worked so well. And really that whole idea of community and best practice sharing was kind of encapsulated during that one webinar.
Thank you. So I think those are the questions we've gotten. Appreciate that from everyone. Crystal, I'll pass back to you to wrap up.
Yep, I think that concludes our session today. We will be following up with an email with the on-demand webinar from today's session, along with any Q&As that we were not able to get to. So thank you for your time, and we appreciate everybody joining today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.